Everyone thinks they know why Michael Jordan's marriage ended. The $68 million divorce, the rumors about gambling, the whispers about his obsession with business. But nobody knew the real story. Nobody understood the secrets that destroyed America's most famous sports family. Until March 15, 2019, when a simple question about his divorce led to the most shocking confession in television history. This is that story. The real story. The truth that Michael Jordan carried alone for 25 years. And it all started with 5 words that no one saw coming. The bright studio lights felt like fire on Michael Jordan's face. He sat in the red leather chair at Sports Central Live in downtown Chicago. It was March 15, 2019. The cameras were rolling. Across from him sat Marcus Thompson. Marcus was one of the best sports reporters on TV. He had been doing interviews for 20 years. Today he wore his lucky blue tie. "So Michael," Marcus said with a big smile, "tell us about your new restaurant in Charlotte." Jordan relaxed a little. This was easy stuff. He had done 1,000 interviews like this one. "Well, Marcus, we wanted to bring great food to the fans. Something special for the community." They talked about Jordan's businesses for 20 minutes. The Charlotte Hornets basketball team, his shoe company, his golf game, normal stuff that Jordan could talk about in his sleep. Marcus nodded and smiled. "Your fans love hearing about your success after basketball. I've been lucky," Jordan said. "Hard work and good people around me." The interview felt normal, safe. Jordan even laughed a few times. He thought about his dinner plans after this. Maybe call his kids later. Then something changed. Marcus stopped smiling. His friendly face turned serious. He leaned forward like a hunter who just spotted his prey. "Michael, I need to ask you about something else," Marcus said. His voice was different now. Colder. Jordan felt his stomach tighten. Something was wrong. "What's that, Marcus?" "Your divorce from Juanita in 2006. Marcus stared right into Jordan's eyes. $168 million. Most expensive divorce in sports history. The studio got quiet. Really quiet. Jordan could hear the camera guy breathing across the room. Jordan's hands slowly made fists on his knees. His jaw got tight. The man who had stared down the best players in the world felt his heart start beating fast. "What exactly are you asking me, Marcus?" Jordan's voice stayed calm, but it had a warning in it. People who knew Jordan would recognize that tone. Marcus smelled blood in the water. He pressed harder. "There were rumors, Michael. People said it wasn't just about growing apart. They said there were gambling debts. Big ones." Jordan sat perfectly still. His dark eyes burned into Marcus like laser beams. "Some people said there were threats," Marcus continued. "Bad people who wanted to hurt your family. Is that why you really quit basketball the first time? Is that why your marriage fell apart?" The whole studio held its breath. Even the guy running the cameras stopped moving. You could have heard a pin drop. Jordan didn't move for what felt like forever. Just stared at Marcus with those famous eyes that had intimidated players for 15 years. When Jordan finally spoke, his voice was barely louder than a whisper. But everyone heard every word. "You want to know the real story, Marcus?" Marcus nodded fast. He thought he was about to get the biggest scoop of his career. "You want to know what really happened to my family?" "Yes," Marcus whispered back. Jordan stood up slowly. All 6 feet and 6 inches of him, he looked down at Marcus like he used to look at opponents before destroying them. "Then turn off those cameras." Marcus blinked hard. "What?" "You heard me, turn off the cameras. And I'll tell you something that will change everything you think you know about Michael Jordan." Marcus looked confused. "But Michael, we're live on TV. Your viewers don't need to hear this," Jordan said. His voice was cold as ice. "Nobody needs to hear this." The producer in the control room was going crazy. He was talking fast into Marcus's earpiece. "Keep him talking. Don't let him leave." Marcus held up his hand. "Michael, whatever you want to say, you can say it to our audience. We're here to tell your story." Jordan walked closer to Marcus. Close enough that only Marcus could hear what he said next. "My story? You want my story?" Jordan's eyes had tears in them now. "My story is about a man who loved his family so much that he destroyed it trying to keep it safe." Marcus felt his mouth go dry. This wasn't what he expected. Jordan stepped back and spoke louder. loud enough for the cameras to pick up. "You think you know Michael Jordan? You think you know why I quit? Why I came back? Why my marriage ended?" Jordan shook his head. "You don't know anything." He walked over to his chair and picked up the water bottle sitting next to it. His hands were shaking a little. "For 13 years, I've kept secrets that would blow your mind, Marcus. Secrets about murder, about the FBI, about why I really retired in that." Marcus leaned forward so far he almost fell off his chair. "What are you talking about?" Jordan took a long drink of water. When he put the bottle down, he looked older somehow. "Tired. I'm talking about things that happened to my family. Things that made me choose between basketball and keeping the people I love alive." The studio was so quiet you could hear the air conditioning humming. "My father didn't die in a random robbery, Marcus. My first retirement wasn't about losing my loaf for the game. And my divorce." Jordan stopped talking and just stared at the floor. "Michael," Marcus said softly, "what really happened?" Jordan looked back up. The tears were gone now. His voice was strong again. "What happened is that I learned you can't protect people by lying to them. Even when the lies are meant to keep them safe. Even when telling the truth might get them killed." He walked toward the exit door. "Wait." Marcus jumped up. "You can't just leave. You can't say things like that and walk away." Jordan stopped at the door. He turned around one more time. "Watch me." But for the first time in over 20 years, Jordan felt like he might finally be ready to tell the truth. The whole truth, even if it destroyed what was left of his carefully built image. Even if it brought back all the pain he had spent decades trying to forget. The truth was coming out. Whether Michael Jordan was ready or not. To understand what Michael Jordan meant in that studio, we have to go back 30 years. Back to when everything seemed perfect. It was September 2nd, 1989. Las Vegas was hot and bright. Michael Jordan stood in a small chapel called the Little White Wedding Chapel. He was 26 years old and already famous. But he was also nervous. Juanita Vinoy walked down the short aisle in a simple white dress. She was 30 and beautiful. Her smile could light up a room. Michael had never seen anything more perfect in his life. "Do you, Michael Jeffrey Jordan, take this woman to be your wife?" the minister asked. "I do," Michael said. His voice was strong and sure. "Do you, Juanita Vinoy, take this man to be your husband?" "I do," Juanita whispered. They were married, just like that. No big wedding, no crowds, just two people in love. Michael had met Juanita 4 years earlier at a restaurant in Chicago. She was working as a loan officer at a bank. She had also been a model. She was smart and funny and didn't care that he was becoming famous. "You're just a basketball player," she had teased him on their first date. "Don't let it go to your head." Michael loved that about her. Most people treated him like he was special. Juanita treated him like he was just Michael. Their early years together were like a fairy tale. Michael was getting better and better at basketball. The Chicago Bulls were becoming a great team, and Juanita was there for all of it. In 1988, they had their first baby. They named him Jeffrey Michael Jordan. Michael Cly, when he held his son for the first time. "He's perfect," Michael whispered to Juanita in the hospital. Just like his mom. 2 years later, Marcus James Jordan was born. Now they had 2 beautiful boys. Michael was playing the best basketball of his life. Life was good. Then came 1991. The year that changed everything. The Bulls won their first championship that year. Michael had dreamed of this moment since he was a kid. When the final buzzer sounded, he fell to the floor and cried. His dream had come true. Juanita was in the stands watching. She was crying too. Not just because her husband had won, but because she saw how happy he was. She had never seen him smile so big. After the game, Michael found her in the hallway outside the locker room. "We did it, baby," he said, picking her up and spinning her around. "We actually did it. You did it, Michael. You're the champion." "We're the champions," he corrected her. "I couldn't have done this without you." In 1992, Juanita gave birth to their daughter. They named her Jasmine Mikhail Jordan. Now their family was complete. 2 boys, 1 girl, and parents who loved each other deeply. Michael was on top of the world. He had won 2 championships. He was the most famous athlete on the planet. His family was healthy and happy. What could go wrong? But fame came with problems that Michael and Juanita never saw coming. Everywhere they went, People stared. They couldn't go to dinner without being bothered. They couldn't take their kids to the park without cameras following them. Their private life wasn't private anymore. Michael also started gambling more. It wasn't new for him. He had always been competitive about everything. Card games, golf, even betting on which elevator would come first. But now the bets were getting bigger. "Michael, you lost how much playing poker last night?" Juanita asked him one morning, and "It's not a big deal," Michael said. "I can afford it." "That's not the point. It's becoming a problem." "I'm fine, Juanita. I know what I'm doing." But Juanita wasn't so sure. She saw how Michael got when he gambled. His eyes would light up. He would get excited in a way that worried her. Like he needed the action more than he wanted it. Still, they were happy. The Bulls won another championship in 1992. Michael was playing basketball like no one had ever played it before. The kids were growing up healthy and smart. Juanita was the perfect basketball wife and mother. To the outside world, the Jordans looked like the perfect family. Michael was Superman. Juanita was Wonder Woman. Jeffrey, Marcus, and Jasmine were the cutest kids in America. But perfection is hard to keep, especially when you're the most famous person in the world. By 1993, the pressure was getting to everyone. Michael felt like he couldn't make a mistake. Every game mattered. Every shot was important. Millions of people were watching his every move. Juanita felt the pressure too. She had to look perfect all the time. She had to say the right things to reporters. She had to make sure the kids behaved in public. It was exhausting. The gambling was getting worse too. Michael wasn't just playing poker with friends anymore. He was getting involved with people Juanita didn't know. People who made her nervous. "Who was that man on the phone last night?" she asked Michael one morning. "What man?" Michael asked, not looking up from his newspaper. "The one who called at 11 o'clock. You went into your office and closed the door. Just business stuff. Nothing important." But it wasn't business stuff, and it was very important. It was the beginning of something that would change their lives forever. James Buhler was calling Michael more and more. Buhler ran private gambling games for rich people. It's very private games. Very high stakes. "Michael, you're the kind of player we've been looking for," Buhler had told him. "Someone who isn't afraid to bet big. Someone who plays to win." Michael was interested. He loved competition. He loved the rush of big bets. And he was confident he could win. What Michael didn't know was that James Buhler was connected to dangerous people. People who didn't just take your money when you lost. People who found other ways to collect their debts. The first time Michael played in one of Buhler's games was after a Bulls practice in February 1993. The game was in a warehouse outside Chicago. The other players wore expensive suits and drove fancy cars. Michael won $50,000 that night. "See?" he told himself driving home. "I knew I could beat these guys." The second game was a week later. Michael lost. The third game was in March. Michael lost. By April, Michael owed James Buhler. "Don't worry about it," Buhler told him. "You're good for it. Besides, I know you're going to win it all back next time." Michael believed him. He had never failed at anything he really tried to do. Why would gambling be different? But gambling was different. Very different. And James Buhler was not the kind of man you wanted to owe money to. Juanita could see that something was wrong with her husband. He wasn't sleeping well. He seemed nervous all the time. He would get phone calls that made him upset. "Michael, what's going on?" she asked him after the Bulls lost Game 4 of the playoffs to the New York Knicks. "You're not yourself." "I'm fine," Michael said. But he wasn't fine. He was scared. He owed James Buhler almost $500,000 now, and Buhler was getting impatient. "Michael, we need to talk," Buhler had said during their last phone call. "This debt is getting out of hand." "I'll pay you back," Michael promised. "After the playoffs, I'll get the money." "I hope so," Buhler said. His voice was cold. For everyone's sake. Michael didn't know what that meant. But he was about to find out. The Bulls won the 1993 championship. Michael's third in a row. He should have been the happiest man in the world. Instead, he was terrified. Because James Buhler was done waiting for his money, and he was about to show Michael Jordan what happened to people who didn't pay their debts. What happened next would destroy everything Michael had worked for. His career, his marriage, his family, and it would start with a phone call that would change Michael Jordan's life forever. The phone call came at 2:17 in the morning on July 20. Michael Jordan was sleeping peacefully next to Juanita in their Highland Park mansion. The Bulls had won their third straight championship 2 months ago. Life was perfect. Then the phone rang. Michael answered it without looking at who was calling. His voice was sleepy and confused. "Hello, Michael, this is Detective Ray Williams with the Robeson County Sheriff's Office in North Carolina." Michael sat up fast. His heart started racing. Police didn't call at 2 a.m. with good news. "What's wrong?" Michael asked. "Sir, I'm sorry to tell you this. Your father has been found dead." The words hit Michael like a truck. "What? What did you say?" James Jordan was found shot to death at a rest stop on Highway 74. "I'm very sorry for your loss." Michael couldn't breathe. He couldn't think. His father was dead. Shot to death. It didn't make sense. "How?" Michael whispered. "Why?" "It appears to be a robbery that went wrong. 2 men have been arrested. We'll know more after the investigation." Michael hung up the phone. He sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the wall. Juanita woke up and saw him shaking. "Michael, what's wrong?" "Who was Dad's dead," Michael said. His voice was flat and empty. "Someone killed my dad." Juanita gasped and put her arms around her husband. They held each other and cried. But Michael wasn't just crying from sadness. He was crying from fear, because he knew this wasn't a random robbery. He knew exactly why his father was dead. James Jordan Sr. had been killed because of Michael's gambling debts. 3 days after the funeral, Michael got another phone call. This time he recognized the voice immediately. "Michael, I'm very sorry about your father," James Buhler said. His voice was calm and friendly, like all. "You son of a..." Michael started to scream. Now, Buhler interrupted. "Let's keep this civil. I had nothing to do with what happened to your father. That was very unfortunate." "Don't lie to me," Michael yelled. "You killed him because I owe you money." "Michael, you're upset. You're not thinking clearly. Your father was killed by 2 young men who were robbing people. It's very sad, but it had nothing to do with our business relationship." Michael wanted to reach through the phone and strangle Buhler, but he also wanted to believe him. He needed to believe that his gambling hadn't gotten his father killed. However, Buhler continued, "This tragedy does remind us that bad things can happen to people we care about. Your debt to me is now $1.2 million, and I think it's time we discussed payment options." Michael's blood turned to ice. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that you have a beautiful wife and 3 young children. I'm saying that accidents happen every day. I'm saying that it would be terrible if something happened to another member of your family." Michael understood perfectly. Buhler was threatening Juanita and the kids. "What do you want from me?" Michael asked. "I want my money. But I also understand that $1.2 million is a lot, even for you. So I have a proposal." Michael waited. "You're going to help me with some business ventures. Clean business ventures. You're going to invest in some companies I'm involved with. You're going to make some appearances at events I organize. And you're going to keep playing in my games until your debt is paid off. And if I don't..." "Michael, you're a smart man. I don't think I need to spell it out for you." Michael's hands were shaking when he hung up the phone. He sat in his office and tried to figure out what to do. He could go to the police, but he had no proof that Buhler killed his father. He could try to pay the debt, but he didn't have $1.2 million in cash. He could try to run, but where could Michael Jordan hide? He was trapped. That night, Michael couldn't eat dinner with his family. He couldn't look at Jeffrey, Marcus, Jasmine without thinking about what Buhler might do to them. "Daddy, why are you sad?" 6-year-old Jasmine asked him. Michael picked up his little girl and held her tight. "Daddy's just missing Grandpa," he said. But that wasn't the whole truth. Daddy was scared that something might happen to Jasmine, or to Jeffrey, or to Marcus, or to Juanita. Over the next few weeks, Michael tried to pay down his debt. He sold some investments. He borrowed money from friends. He even considered asking the Bulls for an advance on his salary. But every time he paid Buhler some money, Buhler would invite him to another game. "Come on, Michael," Buhler would say. "You can win it all back in one night. You're Michael Jordan. You don't lose." And Michael would go. Because he was addicted to gambling. Because he believed he could win. And because he was afraid of what would happen if he said no. In September, Michael lost another $800,000 in one night. Now he owed James Buhler $2 million. "This is getting out of hand," Buhler told him after that game. "I'm starting to lose patience." "Give me more time," Michael begged. "I can get the money." "Time is running out, Michael, and patience is not unlimited." Michael drove home that night, knowing his family was in serious danger. He also knew that he couldn't tell Juanita what was happening. If she knew the truth, she might try to help. She might call the police. She might do something that would get them all killed. So Michael decided to handle this alone. In October 1993, Michael started getting followed. Black cars would park outside his house. Strange men would show up at Bulls practices and just watch. His phone would ring at all hours, but no one would speak when he answered. The message was clear. "We know where you are. We know where your family is. We can get to you anytime we want." Juanita noticed that her husband was acting strange. "Michael, you're scaring me," she told him one night. "You barely eat. You don't sleep. You jump every time the phone rings. What's going on?" "Nothing's going on," Michael lied. "I'm just tired. The season's starting soon, and I have a lot on my mind. This isn't about basketball. This is about something else. I can tell." Michael wanted to tell her everything. He wanted to hold her and confess that he had made terrible mistakes. He wanted to ask for her help, but he was too scared. If Buhler found out that Juanita knew about the debt, he might hurt her. So Michael kept lying. In November, the threats got worse. Michael came home from practice one day to find that someone had been in his house. Nothing was stolen, but things had been moved around. Personal things, family photos, the kids' toys. Someone had been in his children's bedrooms. That night, Michael hired private security. He told Juanita it was because his fame was attracting too much attention. She believed, but Michael knew the truth. His family was being hunted. In December, James Buhler made his final demand. "Michael, I'm done playing games," he said during a phone call. "You owe me $2.8 million now, and I want it all, by New Year's Day." "I don't have that kind of money," Michael said. "Then you're gonna find another way to pay me back. You're gonna do exactly what I tell you to do. When I tell you to do it. For as long as I tell you to do it." "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about retirement, Michael. You're gonna announce that you're retiring from basketball. Then you're gonna help me with some business ventures that require a famous partner. You're gonna help me move money around. Clean money, dirty money. Whatever kind of money I need, move." Michael felt sick. "You want me to help you launder money? I want you to help me stay in business. And in return, I'll let you and your family live normal, safe lives. And if I say no, then your family won't be living any kind of lives at all." Michael closed his eyes. He thought about Jeffrey learning to play basketball in the driveway. He thought about Marcus's laugh. He thought about Jasmine's goodnight kisses. He thought about Juanita's smile. He thought about his father dead in a parking lot in North Carolina. "First, you're gonna retire from basketball. Make up some story about losing your passion for the game. Make it believable. People will think I'm crazy. People will think whatever you tell them to think. You're Michael Jordan. They believe anything you say. When? Soon. Before the season gets too far along. Make it seem like you've been thinking about it for a while." Michael hung up the phone and sat in his office for 2 hours. He was the best basketball player in the world. He was 29 years old and at the peak of his career. The Bulls could win 4 or 5 more championships with him, but none of that mattered now. All that mattered was keeping his family safe. On January 12, 1994, Michael Jordan shocked the world. He announced his retirement from basketball. "I've lost my desire to play," he told reporters. "Basketball just doesn't excite me anymore." People thought he was having a breakdown. Sports writers said he was making the biggest mistake of his life. Fans begged him to change his mind. But Michael knew he was doing the only thing he could do. He was trading his career for his family's lives. And he prayed it would be enough to save them. Michael's prayer wasn't answered the way he hoped. 3 weeks after his retirement announcement, Agent Sarah Morrison from the FBI knocked on his door. It was a cold February morning in 1994. Juanita had taken the kids to school. Michael was alone in his house, still trying to figure out how to live without basketball, when the doorbell rang. Michael looked through the window and saw a woman in a dark suit. She looked serious. She looked like trouble. "Mr. Jordan, I'm Agent Sarah Morrison with the Federal Bureau of Investigation," she said when he opened the door. "We need to talk." Michael's heart started pounding. "About what?" "About James Buhler. About your gambling debts. And about your father's murder." Michael felt like the ground was falling out from under him. "The FBI knew everything." "I don't know what you're talking about," Michael said. Agent Morrison smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. "Mr. Jordan, we've been watching James Buhler for 2 years. We know about his gambling operations, we know about his connections to organized crime, and we know he killed your father." Michael's legs felt weak. He grabbed the doorframe to steady himself. "Can I come in?" Agent Morrison asked. "We have a lot to discuss." They sat in Michael's living room. The same room where his children played with their toys. The same room where he and Juanita watched movies together. Now it felt like a police interrogation room. "Mr. Jordan, James Buhler runs one of the largest illegal gambling operations in the country," Agent Morrison began. "He's also involved in money laundering, drug trafficking, and murder. Your father was killed because Buhler wanted to send you a message. Do you have proof?" Michael asked. "We have recordings of Buhler talking about your debt. We have witnesses who saw his men following your father. And we have phone records showing calls between Buhler and the men who killed your father." Michael put his head in his hands. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because we need your help to bring him down. Boom's super smart, he's careful. But he made one mistake. He got involved with someone too famous to disappear quietly. What do you want from me?" Michael looked up at her like she was crazy. "Are you insane? This man killed my father. He's threatening my family. You want me to get closer to him?" "Mr. Jordan, this is the only way we can protect your family. As long as Buhler is free, you and your loved ones will never be safe. Help us put him in prison, and this nightmare ends. And if I say no, then you're on your own. And Buhler will eventually collect his debt one way or another." Michael walked to the window and stared out at his yard. Jeffrey and Marcus had been playing basketball on the driveway yesterday. Jasmine had been riding her bike. Normal kid stuff. Innocent stuff. How had his life become so complicated? "What would I have to do?" he asked. "Stay retired from basketball, like Buhler wants. Meet with his associates. Let them involve you in their business deals. Record everything. Report back to us. For how long? However long it takes. 6 months. A year. Maybe longer." Michael thought about Juanita. She was already confused and hurt by his retirement. Now she would have to watch him disappear into a world she couldn't understand. "I can't tell my wife about this, can I?" Agent Morrison shook her head. "The fewer people who know, the safer everyone is. This has to stay between us. So I have to lie to her. Every day. For months. Mr. Jordan, I know this is hard, but it's the only way." Michael closed his eyes and made the second hardest decision of his life. The first had been retiring from basketball. This one was worse. "Okay," he said. "I'll do it." "Good. We'll be in touch." After Agent Morrison left, Michael sat alone in his house and tried to figure out how to be an undercover FBA informant while pretending to be a retired basketball player. The next few months were the strangest of Michael's life. During the day, he worked on his baseball skills. He had announced that he wanted to try professional baseball, which gave him a reason to be busy and travel around. But at night, he met with James Buhler and his associates. He went to secret meetings in warehouses and hotel rooms. He listened to conversations about moving money and bribing officials and eliminating problems. He wore a wire hidden in his shirt. He recorded everything. "Michael, you're doing great," Buhler told him during one meeting in April 1994. "You're a natural at this business." Michael smiled and nodded. But inside, he felt sick. Every meeting brought new information about crimes. Every conversation revealed more about how dangerous these people really were. The worst part was lying to Juanita. "Where are you going tonight?" she would ask when he left for meetings. "What kind of business?" "Restaurant deals. Maybe a car dealership." Nothing exciting. Juanita knew he was lying. She could tell by the way he avoided her eyes. The way he changed the subject. The way he seemed nervous all the time. "Michael, what's really going on?" she asked him one night in May. "Ever since you retired, you've been different. Distant. Like you're living a double life. Michael wanted to tell her everything. He wanted to explain about Buller and the FBI and the danger they were all in. He wanted her to understand why he was acting so strange. But Agent Morrison had been clear. Telling Juanita would put her in more danger, not less. "I'm fine," Michael lied. "Just adjusting to life after basketball. This isn't about basketball anymore. This is about us. About our marriage. I feel like I don't know you anymore." Michael's heart broke a little more every time she said things like that. But what choice did he have? In June 1994, Michael signed a contract to play minor league baseball with the Birmingham Barons. It was perfect cover for the FBI operation. Everyone would think he was just pursuing a childhood dream. The truth was that playing baseball kept him visible enough to maintain his endorsement deals while staying far away from Chicago. Away from Juanita's questions. Away from the kids' concerned looks. Away from the family he was trying so hard to protect. Baseball was also a good excuse for why he was traveling so much. Birmingham was close to several cities where Buller had operations. Michael could attend meetings and still make it back for games. But being away from home so much made things worse with Juanita. "You retired from basketball to spend more time with your family," she reminded him during a phone call in July. "Now you're gone more than ever. This is temporary," Michael said. "Just until I figure out what I want to do long term." "What you want to do is run away from your family." "That's not true." "Then come home, Michael. Quit this baseball thing and come home." But Michael couldn't come home. Not yet. Not until the FBI had enough evidence to arrest Buller and his entire organization. By the fall of 1994, the investigation was making progress. The FBI had recordings of dozens of conversations. They had evidence of money laundering, illegal gambling, and connections to several murders. But they needed more time. "How much longer?" Michael asked Agent Morrison during one of their secret meetings. "A few more months. Maybe until next spring." "We're close, Mr. Jordan. Really close." Michael nodded. But he was exhausted. Living a double life was destroying him. He was tired of lying to his wife. Tired of missing his children's school events. Tired of pretending to be someone he wasn't. In December 1994, something happened that changed everything. Michael came home from a baseball training session to find Juanita sitting at the kitchen table with a suitcase next to her. "I'm taking the kids to my mother's house for Christmas," she said. "And I'm not sure when we're coming back." Michael felt panic rising in his chest. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the fact that my husband has become a stranger. I'm talking about the fact that you care more about baseball than you do about your family. I'm talking about the fact that I can't live like this anymore." "Juanita, please. Don't do this." "Then tell me the truth, Michael. Tell me what's really going on. Tell me why you really retired. Tell me why you're always having secret meetings. Tell me why you act like you're scared all the time." Michael looked at his wife, the woman he loved more than basketball, more than money, more than anything except their children. He wanted to tell her everything. But Agent Morrison's warnings echoed in his head. The more people who know, the more danger everyone is in. "I can't," Michael whispered. "Then I can't stay." Juanita picked up her suitcase and walked toward the door. "When this is over," Michael called after her, "when I can explain everything, will you forgive me?" Juanita stopped and turned around. There were tears in her eyes. "I don't know, Michael, I honestly don't know." She left that night with Jeffrey, Marcus, and Jasmine. The house felt empty and cold without them. Michael sat alone on Christmas morning, surrounded by unopened presents and broken dreams. He called Agent Morrison. "I need to know when this ends," he said. "My family is falling apart." "Soon, Mr. Jordan. I promise. We're planning raids for March. By spring, James Buller will be in prison and your family will be safe. And then I can tell my wife the truth, and then you can tell your wife the truth." Michael hung up and prayed that it wouldn't be too late. 3 months later, on March 15, 1995, the FBI conducted simultaneous raids across 6 states. James Buller and 43 of his associates were arrested. That afternoon, Michael got the phone call he had been waiting for. 3 days later, Michael Jordan issued a press release that shocked the world. It was only 2 words: "I'm back." But coming back to basketball was the easy part. The hard part would be coming back to his family. Michael thought basketball would fix everything. He was wrong. When he walked back onto the court at Chicago Stadium on March 1995 against the Indiana Pacers, the crowd went crazy. Fans screamed his name. Reporters called it the greatest comeback in sports history. But at home, Juanita and the children watched on TV from the couch. They should have been there cheering for him. Instead, they felt like strangers watching a man they used to know. "Why didn't Daddy ask us to come to his first game back?" Jasmine asked her mother. Juanita didn't know how to answer. How do you tell a 7-year-old that her father had become someone else? Someone who kept secrets and told lies and disappeared for months at a time. "Daddy's been very busy," Juanita said. "He'll spend time with us soon." But soon never seemed to come. After the game, Michael came home expecting everything to go back to normal. He walked through the front door with a huge smile on his face. "Did you see the game?" he asked excitedly. "Did you see that comeback in the fourth quarter?" Juanita looked at him like he was speaking a foreign language. "Michael, we need to talk." "Can it wait? I'm still buzzing from the game. I forgot how good it feels." Michael's smile faded. He knew this conversation was coming, but he had hoped basketball would make it easier somehow. They sat down in the living room, the same room where Agent Morrison had first explained the FBI operation. The same room where Michael had lied to his wife hundreds of times. "Where have you been, Michael?" Juanita asked. "And don't tell me you were playing baseball or having business meetings. I want the truth." Michael looked at his wife. She looked older than when he had retired, sadder. There were lines around her eyes that hadn't been there before. He wanted to tell her everything. About Bueller and the threats and the FBI. About how every lie had been meant to protect her. About how scared he had been every single day. But Agent Morrison had made him sign papers promising never to discuss the investigation, even with his family. "I can't tell you everything," Michael said carefully. "But I can tell you that I was trying to protect our family from some very dangerous people." "What kind of dangerous people? People who wanted to hurt us because of some mistakes I made?" "What mistakes?" Michael rubbed his face with his hands. "Gambling mistakes. Big ones. I got in debt to the wrong people." Juanita stared at him. "How much debt?" "A lot." "How much, Michael?" "Almost $3 million. Juanita gasped. She had known Michael gambled, but $3 million was more money than most people saw in their entire lives. "Those people killed Dad, didn't they?" Michael continued. "And they threatened to hurt you and the kids if I didn't pay them back." "Oh my God," Juanita whispered. "That's why you retired. That's why you disappeared." "I was trying to handle it. I was trying to keep you safe. By lying to me, by pushing me away, by making me feel like I didn't matter anymore. I thought if you knew the truth, they might hurt you." Juanita was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was different. "Cold, you don't get to make that choice for me, Michael. You don't get to decide what I can and can't handle. I'm your wife, not some child you need to protect from the world." "I was scared, Juanita. I was more scared than I've ever been in my life." "So, was I? Do you think it was easy watching my husband disappear? Do you think it was fun explaining to our children why Daddy didn't live with us anymore? Do you think I wasn't scared too?" Michael reached for her hand, but she pulled away. "I'm sorry," he said. "I thought I was doing the right thing. The right thing would have been trusting me. The right thing would have been telling me the truth and letting us face this together." "Can we try again?" Michael asked. "Can we start over?" Juanita looked at him for a long time. "I don't know, Michael. I really don't know." But they did try. For the next few months, Michael and Juanita worked on rebuilding their marriage. Michael was home more. He helped with homework and bedtime stories. He took the family on vacation to Disney World. The 1995-96 season was magical for Michael and the Bulls. They won 72 games, breaking the all-time record. Michael was playing better than ever. The team was unstoppable. At home, things seemed to be getting better too. Jeffrey was happy to have his dad around. Marcus started playing basketball more seriously. Jasmine stopped having nightmares. But the damage had been done. Trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild. Michael had learned to live with secrets. He had learned to control every aspect of his life to protect his family. Even after the danger was over, he couldn't stop being controlling. "Where are you going?" he would ask Juanita when she left the house. "To lunch with Sarah. I told you this morning." "What time will you be back?" "I just want to know where you are." Is that a crime? It is when you ask me every single time I leave the house. The paranoia had become a habit. Michael hired more security guards. He installed better alarm systems. He checked on the kids' schedules constantly. "Dad, why do we need bodyguards at school?" Jeffrey asked one day. "Just to be safe," Michael said. "Safe from what?" "The danger is over, right? You said those bad people were in jail." Michael didn't have a good answer. The truth was that he couldn't shake the feeling that something bad was always about to happen. The gambling hadn't stopped either. Michael was more careful now, but he still bet huge amounts on golf games and poker. The addiction was still there, stronger than ever. $50,000, she said? "Michael, we just went through hell because of your gambling and you're still doing this." "It's different now," Michael said. "These are friendly games. People I know." "That's what you said before. This isn't the same situation." "How do I know that? How do I know you're telling me the truth this time?" Michael didn't have an answer for that either. The Bulls won the championship in 1996, then again in 1997, and again in 1997, and again in 1997, and again in 1998. Michael was the greatest basketball player who ever lived, and everyone knew it. But at home, his marriage was slowly falling apart. Juanita began to suspect there were other women. Michael was traveling constantly. He was getting home late. Phone calls would end when she walked into the room. "Who was that?" she would ask. "Just business," Michael would say. But Juanita had heard just business too many times before. It was Michael's answer for everything he didn't want to explain. The truth was more complicated. Michael wasn't having affairs, but he was meeting with people Juanita didn't know about. FBI agents who still checked on him occasionally. Private investigators he hired to make sure his family was safe. Therapists who were helping him deal with the trauma of his father's murder. Michael had learned that telling the whole truth was dangerous. But telling partial truths was destroying his marriage. In 1997, during the Bulls' playoff run, Juanita made a decision that would change everything. "I want us to go to marriage counseling," she told Michael. "We don't need counseling. We're fine." "We're not fine, Michael. We haven't been fine since you came back from retirement." "Maybe we were never fine." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means that I married a man who shared everything with me, who trusted me, who let me be part of his life. That man doesn't exist anymore. I'm the same person I always was." "No, you're not. You're someone who keeps secrets. Someone who lies about where he's going and what he's doing. Someone who treats his wife like she's too weak to handle the truth." Michael was quiet for a minute. Then he said something that revealed how much he had changed. "Maybe that's because the world is more dangerous than you realize. Maybe that's because some truths are too heavy for other people to carry." Juanita stared at him. "Listen to yourself, Michael. You sound like a completely different person than the man I married." She was right. The Michael Jordan who had fallen in love with Juanita in 1985 would never have talked that way. That Michael believed in sharing everything with the woman he loved. That Michael trusted his wife to be strong enough to handle anything. But that Michael had never watched his father get murdered because of gambling debts. That Michael had never spent 18 months lying to the FBI and living in fear every single day. Trauma changes people. Sometimes it makes them stronger. Sometimes it makes them more careful. And sometimes it makes them forget how to love the way they used to love. By 1998, Michael and Juanita were essentially living separate lives in the same house. They were polite to each other. They worked together to raise their children. They appeared together at public events. But the connection they had once shared was gone, replaced by caution and suspicion and the weight of too many secrets. After winning his 6th championship, Michael retired from basketball again. This time, he said, it would be permanent. "Now I can focus on my family," he told reporters. "Now I can be the husband and father they deserve." But it was already too late. The cracks in their marriage had become chasms, and no amount of retirement was going to bridge them. Michael Jordan had saved his family from James Buhler and his associates. But he couldn't save his family from what those years of fear and secrets had done to all of them. The real tragedy wasn't that Michael had lied to protect his wife. The real tragedy was that those lies had taught him to stop trusting her, and they had taught her to stop trusting him. Without trust, love isn't enough. Without honesty, even the strongest marriages crumble. Michael Jordan was about to learn that lesson the hard way. Michael Jordan was about to learn that lesson the hard way. His second retirement in 1998 was supposed to be different. This time he would focus on being a husband and father. This time he would fix what had been broken during those terrible years of secrets and fear. But Michael had forgotten how to be just a husband and father. He only knew how to be Michael Jordan, the competitor who had to win at everything. So instead of relaxing and rebuilding his marriage, Michael threw himself into business with the same intense energy that had made him great at basketball. "I'm gonna build an empire," he told Juanita one morning in 1999. "Something that will take care of our family forever." Juanita looked up from her coffee. "We already have enough money to take care of our family forever. Michael, what we need is for you to take care of your family now." But Michael wasn't listening. He was already making phone calls, setting up meetings, planning his next conquest. Within 6 months, Michael had invested in restaurants, car dealerships, and clothing companies. He was working 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. He was busier than he had been as a basketball player. "This is not what retirement is supposed to look like," Juanita told him during one of their rare dinners together. "I'm securing our future," Michael replied. "Our future was already secure." "What about our present?" Michael didn't understand what she meant. In his mind, success in business was just another way of protecting his family. Making money was how he kept them safe. But Juanita didn't need more money. She needed her husband back. By 2000, Michael had surrounded himself with advisors, lawyers, agents, and business partners. Everyone who worked with him treated him like a king. Everyone said yes to Michael Jordan. Everyone agreed with his ideas. Everyone except Juanita. "You're not the same man I married," she told him during a fight in their kitchen. "That man cared about being a good husband and father. Now you only care about winning, even when there's no game to win." Michael's response showed how much the trauma of the 1990s had changed him. "You have no idea what I've sacrificed for this family," he said. His voice was cold and angry. "You have no idea what I've been through to keep us safe. So don't tell me what I care about. Then tell me what you've been through. Tell me what you've sacrificed. Stop treating me like I'm not strong enough to handle the truth." But Michael couldn't do it. The FBI had made him sign papers promising never to talk about the Buehler investigation. What had started as a way to protect Juanita had become a wall between them. "Some things are better left unsaid," Michael replied. "That's exactly the problem. Michael, you think you get to decide what I can handle. You think you get to choose what I'm allowed to know about my own husband's life." Michael walked out of the kitchen. He always walked away when conversations got too deep. He had learned that talking about feelings was dangerous. Feelings made you vulnerable. Vulnerable people got hurt. So, Michael stayed busy. He made deals and signed contracts, and built his brand. He was becoming richer and more successful every day. But he was also becoming more isolated from his family. Jeffrey was now 12 years old. He was smart and athletic, but he was also angry. Angry that his father had missed so many of his games when he was younger. Angry that family dinners were rare. Angry that his parents seemed to be living separate lives. "Dad, can you come to my basketball game on Saturday?" Jeffrey asked one evening. "I wish I could, son, but I have a meeting with some investors in New York." "You always have meetings. This is important business, Jeffrey. This is about our future. What about right now? What about being here for your family right now?" Michael looked at his oldest son and saw himself at that age. Determined, stubborn, unwilling to back down. "You'll understand when you're older," Michael said. But Jeffrey was already old enough to understand that his father's priorities had nothing to do with family time. Marcus was 10 now, and he was trying harder than anyone to get his father's attention. He practiced basketball for hours every day, hoping that if he got good enough, his dad would spend time with him. "Dad, want to play one-on-one?" Marcus would ask. "Not right now, son. I've got some calls to make. Later. We'll see." But later never came. Michael was always on the phone, or in meetings or traveling for business. Jasmine was 8, and she had started having nightmares again. Not about bad people hurting her family this time. About her parents getting divorced like several of her friends' parents had. "Mommy, are you and Daddy gonna stay married?" she asked Juanita one night. Juanita tucked her daughter into bed and tried to smile. "Of course, sweetheart. Mommy and Daddy love each other very much." But Jasmine was smart. She could see that her parents barely talked to each other anymore. She could feel the tension in the house. "Then why are you always sad?" Jasmine asked. Juanita didn't have a good answer for that. The truth was that Juanita was more than sad. She was lonely. Lonelier than she had been when Michael was playing baseball and traveling with the FBI. At least then she had understood that he was trying to come back to her. Now it seemed like he was trying to get as far away from family life as possible. In 2001, Michael made an announcement that broke Juanita's heart. "I'm coming back to basketball," he told her. "The Washington Wizards made me an offer I can't refuse." Juanita stared at him in disbelief. "You retired to spend time with your family. Now you're leaving again? This is different. I'll be part owner of the team. It's a great business opportunity. It's basketball, Michael. The same basketball you said you were done with forever. I miss the competition. I miss the game. What about us? Do you miss us?" Michael was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that revealed the truth about their marriage. Sometimes it's easier to be Michael Jordan, the basketball player, than it is to be Michael Jordan, the husband and father. Juanita felt like he had slapped her. "So you're running away?" "I'm not running away. I'm pursuing an opportunity. You're 40 years old, Michael. You have 3 children who need their father. You have a wife who has been waiting for you to really come home for 10 years. And you're choosing basketball over all of that. That's not fair. What's not fair is watching the man you love choose everything else over you. Every single time." Michael left for Washington the next day. Juanita stood at the window and watched his car drive away. She knew something had changed forever between them. For the next 2 years, Michael played for the Washington Wizards. Most people considered his comeback a disappointment. He was older, slower, not the same player he had been with the Bulls. But for Michael, basketball was still easier than dealing with his family problems. On the court, he knew the rules. He knew how to win. At home, everything was complicated and messy and impossible to control. During those 2 years, Juanita began building a life that didn't revolve around Michael Jordan. She became more involved in charity work. She strengthened her friendships. She rediscovered who she was when she wasn't trying to be the perfect basketball wife. She also began to realize that their marriage might be beyond saving. "I can't keep living like this," she told her best friend Maria during lunch in 2002. "I feel like I'm married to a ghost. He's physically there sometimes, but emotionally he's been gone for years. Have you talked to him about counseling?" Maria asked. "I've tried. But Michael doesn't believe in counseling. He thinks asking for help is a sign of weakness." "What are you going to do?" Juanita stared out the restaurant window. "I don't know. I honestly don't know." But deep down, she was starting to know. She was starting to understand that some marriages can't survive the weight of too many secrets, too much control, and too little trust. When Michael finally retired from basketball for the 3rd time in 2003, Juanita hoped things might change. Maybe now he would focus on their family. Maybe now he would remember how to be the man she had married. Instead, Michael threw himself into business even harder than before. He bought restaurants, invested in real estate, started planning to buy an NBA team. "I'm going to own the Charlotte Bobcats," he announced to the family at dinner one night. "That's great, Dad," Jeffrey said without much enthusiasm. At 15, he had learned not to get too excited about his father's plans. "This could be huge for our family," Michael continued. "Think about the opportunities this will create." "What opportunities?" Marcus asked. He was 13 now, and like his brother, he had grown tired of hearing about his father's business deals. "Well, you boys could work for the team someday. Learn the business from the ground up." "What if we don't want to work for your team?" Jeffrey asked. "What if we want to do our own things?" Michael looked surprised. It had never occurred to him that his children might not want to be part of his empire. "Of course you'll want to be involved. This is family business." "No, Dad," Jeffrey said quietly. "This is your business. Just like everything else you do." That night, Juanita found Michael sitting in his office, staring at nothing. "The kids are right," she said. "This isn't about family. This is about you needing to win at everything. I'm trying to build something lasting." Michael replied, "Something that will matter after I'm gone." "What will matter after you're gone is whether your children remember having a father who loved them more than he loved success." Michael turned to look at his wife. She looked tired. Older than her years, He realized he had been so busy building his empire that he had forgotten to notice how much it was costing the people he loved most. "Maybe we should try counseling," he said quietly. Juanita's eyes filled with tears. For a moment, she saw a glimpse of the man she had married. The man who could admit when he was wrong. The man who could ask for help. "I would like that," she whispered. They tried counseling for 3 months in late 2003. Dr. Patricia Williams was a good therapist who specialized in helping couples rebuild trust and communication. But Michael couldn't open up completely. He still couldn't tell Juanita about the FBI investigation. He still couldn't explain why he had become so controlling and secretive. "Mr. Jordan," Dr. Williams said during one session, "your wife needs to understand why you changed so much after your first retirement. Without that understanding, she can't fully trust you again." "Some things are better left in the past," Michael replied. "Not when they're still affecting your present." But Michael had spent 10 years protecting the secrets of his past. He didn't know how to stop. In January 2004, Juanita made a decision that would change everything. She filed for divorce. Michael was shocked, even though he shouldn't have been. The signs had been there for years. The distance. The arguments. The separate lives. "I don't want our marriage to end," he told her when the papers were served. "Then why haven't you fought for it?" Juanita asked. "Why haven't you chosen us over everything else even once in the last 10 years? Michael didn't have an answer. Because the truth was that he had been choosing everything else. Basketball. Business. His need to control and protect and win. Everything except the woman he loved and the family he was trying so hard to provide for. 3 weeks later, Juanita withdrew the divorce petition. She wasn't ready to give up completely. Not yet, but the cracks in their marriage had become canyons. And Michael Jordan, who had never failed at anything he really tried to do, was about to discover that some things can't be won through determination and effort alone. Some things require vulnerability and trust, and the willingness to let someone else see who you really are behind all the success and fame and carefully constructed image. Michael had forgotten how to do any of those things. And time was running out to remember. Michael had forgotten how to do any of those things. And time was running out to remember. The second divorce filing came on a snowy morning in December 2006. Michael was in his office, planning a business trip to Charlotte, when his lawyer called. "Michael, Juanita's attorney just filed papers again. This time it looks serious." Michael's stomach dropped. He had known this day might come, but he wasn't ready for it. "What do the papers say?" he asked. "Irreconcilable differences. She's asking for joint custody of the children and half of all marital assets." Michael hung up the phone and sat in his chair for a long time. Outside, snow was falling on the basketball hoop where Jeffrey and Marcus used to practice. Where he should have been practicing with them. When Juanita came home from dropping Jasmine at school, she found Michael waiting in the kitchen. "We need to talk," he said. "There's nothing left to talk about, Michael. I've been trying to talk to you for 10 years. This is different. I know you're serious this time." Juanita sat down across from him at the table where they used to eat breakfast as a family, back when they were still a family. "I filed for divorce because I can't pretend anymore," she said. "I can't pretend that we have a marriage. I can't pretend that you want to be here. I can't pretend that things are gonna get better. They can get better. I'll change. I'll be home more. I'll pay attention to the kids." "Michael, you've been saying that for years. But you never change. You just get busier." "That's not true, isn't it? When was the last time you went to one of Marcus's games? When was the last time you helped Jasmine with her homework? When was the last time you asked me about my day and actually listened to the answer?" Michael tried to remember, but he couldn't. The last few years had been a blur of meetings and phone calls and business deals. "I've been working hard to provide for this family," he said. "We don't need you to provide for us anymore, Michael. We need you to show up for us. There's a difference." Michael looked at his wife. Really looked at her. She was 47 years old now. Still beautiful. But there was sadness in her eyes that hadn't been there when they were young. "What if I retired from business? What if I just stayed home and focused on being a husband and father?" Juanita laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. "You tried that already, remember? You lasted 6 months before you started another company. This time would be different." "How do I know that? How do I trust you when you've broken every promise you've ever made to this family?" That hurt because it was true. Michael had promised to spend more time at home after his first retirement. He had promised to stop working so much after his second retirement. He had promised to be more present for the children. He had broken all of those promises. "Give me one more chance," Michael begged. "Please." Juanita was quiet for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "I don't have any more chances to give, Michael. I'm empty. I've used up all my chances hoping you would remember how to love us more than you love winning." That afternoon, the divorce became public news. ESPN broke the story first. Michael Jordan and wife Juanita filed for divorce. Within hours, reporters were camped outside their house. The phone rang constantly. Everyone wanted to know why the perfect couple was splitting up. Michael didn't know what to tell them, because he barely understood it himself. The hardest part was telling the children. Jeffrey was 18 now, a senior in high school, when his parents called him into the living room to explain what was happening. He wasn't surprised. "Are you getting divorced because of Dad's work?" Jeffrey asked. Michael and Juanita looked at each other. "How do you explain to your son that his father had forgotten how to be a husband?" "We're getting divorced because your parents have grown apart," Juanita said carefully. "Sometimes people who love each other can't figure out how to be married anymore. But you do still love each other, right?" Marcus asked. He was 16, old enough to understand divorce, but young enough to hope it could be fixed. "Yes," Juanita said, looking at Michael. "We still love each other. But love isn't always enough." Jasmine was 14, and she was angry, angrier than anyone expected. "This is stupid," she yelled. "If you love each other, then you should stay married. Other kids' parents fight about money, or cheating, or drinking. You guys are getting divorced because Dad works too much? That's the dumbest reason ever." Michael reached for his daughter, but she pulled away. "Jasmine, it's more complicated than that," he said. "No, it's not. You choose work over us every single day. And now Mom is choosing divorce over trying to fix it. You're both giving up." Jasmine ran to her room and slammed the door. Michael started to follow her, but Juanita stopped him. "Let her be angry," Juanita said. "She has a right to be angry. She's angry at both of us. She's angry because we're destroying her family. And she's right to be angry about that." The divorce proceedings began in January 2007. Michael hired Frederick Cohn, one of the best divorce lawyers in Chicago. Juanita hired Robert Stephan, who was known for protecting women in high-profile divorces. At first, both lawyers tried to keep things civil. This was supposed to be an amicable divorce between two people who still cared about each other. But divorce brings out the worst in people, even good people. Michael's lawyers started questioning whether Juanita deserved half of his wealth. After all, most of his money had been earned after basketball, when their marriage was already in trouble. Mrs. Jordan was not significantly involved in Mr. Jordan's business ventures. Cohn argued in court. She cannot claim credit for wealth that was created independently of the marriage. Juanita's lawyers fought back by painting Michael as an absent husband and father who had prioritized money over family for years. Mr. Jordan chose to pursue business interests that took him away from his family, Stephan countered. Mrs. Jordan maintained the household and raised 3 children largely on her own. She deserves compensation for the sacrifices she made. The custody battle was even more painful. Michael's lawyers argued that Juanita was emotionally unstable. They pointed to her previous divorce filing and withdrawal as evidence that she made impulsive decisions that could harm the children. Mrs. Jordan has shown a pattern of using divorce as a weapon against her husband, Cohn said. This creates an unstable environment for the children. Juanita's team painted Michael as a controlling, absent father who put his image ahead of his children's needs. Mr. Jordan has missed countless school events, games, and family occasions due to his business interests, Stephan argued. The children need stability, not a part-time father who appears when it's convenient for his schedule. The children were caught in the middle of a war between two people who claimed to love them more than anything. Jeffrey refused to take sides publicly, but privately he blamed his father. "You were never really here anyway," he told Michael during one of their supervised visits. "At least now we don't have to pretend we're a family anymore." Those words cut Michael deeper than any criticism from reporters or lawyers. Marcus was angry at both parents, but especially his mother. "Why can't you just forgive him?" he asked Juanita. "Why does everything have to be so dramatic?" "Because forgiveness without change isn't really forgiveness," Juanita replied. "It's just enabling someone to keep hurting you." Jasmine was the most hurt of all. She had always been closest to her father, and she couldn't understand why her parents couldn't just try harder. "I don't want to choose between you and Mom," she told Michael one day. "But everyone keeps asking me who I want to live with. Why can't I just live with both of you like normal kids?" "Because your mom and I can't live together anymore, sweetheart." "But why not? What's so bad that you can't fix it?" Michael didn't know how to answer that. How do you tell your 14-year-old daughter that her father had spent so many years building walls around himself that he had forgotten how to let people in? The divorce trial began in May 2006. Every day, new details about their marriage were discussed in court and reported in the newspapers. The world learned about Michael's gambling losses, his business obsessions, his controlling behavior, his emotional distance from his family. They also learned about Juanita's loneliness, her attempts to save the marriage, her decision to finally put her own happiness ahead of her husband's reputation. The most damaging testimony came from Dr. Patricia Williams, the marriage counselor they had seen briefly. "Mr. Jordan was unable to be emotionally vulnerable with his wife," she told the court. "He had built protective barriers around himself that prevented true intimacy. Mrs. Jordan felt like she was married to a stranger. In your professional opinion, could their marriage have been saved?" Juanita's lawyer asked. Dr. Williams looked sad as she answered. "Only if Mr. Jordan had been willing to tear down those barriers. Only if he had been willing to trust his wife with his complete truth. Unfortunately, that never happened." Michael sat in the courtroom listening to his marriage being dissected by lawyers and experts and reporters. This was supposed to be private, personal. Instead, it had become a public spectacle. But the worst moment came when Juanita herself testified. "Mrs. Jordan," her lawyer said, "why are you ending this marriage?" Juanita looked across the courtroom at Michael. For a moment, their eyes met, and he saw all the love and pain and disappointment of their 20-year relationship. "I'm ending this marriage because I can't be married to someone who won't let me know who he really is," she said. "Michael is a good man, but he's been hiding behind his success and his fame and his need to control everything for so long that he's forgotten how to just be a husband." "Do you still love him?" Juanita's eyes filled with tears. "Yes, I'll always love him. But you can't build a marriage on love alone. You need trust and honesty and partnership. And we don't have those things anymore." Michael wanted to stand up and tell her everything. About Bular and the FBI and the fear that had changed him. About how every secret had been meant to protect her. About how much he regretted letting those secrets destroy what they had built together. But it was too late. The damage had been done years ago. This courtroom was just the place where they were making it official. On December 29, 2006, exactly 17 years after their Las Vegas wedding, Michael and Juanita Jordan's marriage was officially dissolved. Juanita received a settlement of $68 million, making it the most expensive divorce in sports history at that time. She also received custody of Jasmine, who was still a minor, while Jeffrey and Marcus, both over 18, could choose where to live. But the money didn't matter to either of them. What mattered was that they had failed at the most important thing in their lives. They had failed to keep their family together. After the divorce was finalized, Michael sat alone in his Highland Park mansion. The house felt enormous and empty without Juanita and the children. He thought about calling Juanita to apologize one more time, to try to explain everything he had never been able to explain. But what was the point? She was right about everything. He had chosen his business over his family. He had hidden behind success instead of being vulnerable. He had protected his secrets more carefully than he had protected his marriage. Michael Jordan had won 6 NBA championships, built a billion-dollar business empire, and become the most famous athlete in the world. But he had lost the only thing that really mattered. He had lost his family, and no amount of success could ever make up for that. And no amount of success could ever make up for that. The headlines screamed the numbers. 68 million divorce. Most expensive sports divorce ever. Jordan loses big in court. But for Michael and Juanita, the money was the least painful part of what they had lost. 3 months after the divorce was final, Michael sat in his lawyer's office signing the last of the financial papers. Frederick Cohn was explaining how the assets would be divided. "The Highland Park house goes to Juanita," Cohn said. "You'll keep the Chicago penthouse and the North Carolina property. The Charlotte Hornets ownership stays with you, but she gets half the value in cash." Michael nodded but wasn't really listening. He was thinking about how empty his penthouse felt without the sound of children laughing. The $68 million will be paid over several years, Cohn continued. Some in cash, some in property transfers. It's a lot of money, Michael, but you can afford it. It's not about the money, Michael said quietly. I know, but the media is making this all about the settlement amount. Try not to let that bother you. But it did bother Michael. Not because he cared about the money, but because the headlines made it seem like Juanita had divorced him for a payday. Like she was some gold digger who had planned this all along. The truth was much more complicated and much more sad. Juanita didn't want to be known as the woman who took Michael Jordan for $168 million. She wanted to be remembered as the woman who tried to save a marriage for 20 years before finally giving up. I never wanted this to be about money, she told her sister Carmen over lunch a few weeks after the settlement was announced. I wanted it to be about saving our family. Everyone knows you didn't marry Michael for his money, Carmen replied. You were together before he was really famous. You were there when he was just a basketball player from North Carolina. Tell that to the reporters camped outside my house. Tell that to the people calling me a gold digger on TV. Carmen reached across the table and squeezed her sister's hand. The people who matter know the truth. Your children know. Your family knows. Michael knows. But knowing the truth and living with the consequences were two different things. The worst part for both Michael and Juanita was watching how the divorce affected their children. Jeffrey was now in college, trying to figure out his own life while watching his parents' life fall apart on national television. Dad, why are you doing interviews about the divorce? He asked Michael during a phone call. Why can't you just let it be over? I'm trying to set the record straight, Michael replied. People are saying things about your mother that aren't true. Then stop talking to reporters. Every time you or Mom says something, it just makes it worse for all of us. Jeffrey was right. Every interview, every statement, every comment from friends or lawyers just added to the media circus. Marcus had decided to live with his father, but it wasn't because he wasn't angry. He was furious with both parents. You guys destroyed our family for what? He asked Michael one night at dinner. So you could work more? So Mom could prove a point? Was any of it worth it? Michael looked at his 16-year-old son and tried to find an answer that made sense. But there wasn't one. I thought I was doing what was best for the family, Michael said. How was ignoring us for 10 years best for the family? I wasn't ignoring you. I was working to secure your future. Our future was already secure, Dad. What we needed was our present to include you. Jasmine was struggling the most. At 14, she was old enough to understand what was happening, but too young to process the full complexity of adult relationships. She was living with her mother, but spending every other weekend with her father. The back and forth was confusing and painful. I don't want to be a divorce kid, she told Juanita one night before bed. I don't want to have two houses and two sets of rules and parents who can't be in the same room together. I know, baby. I'm sorry this is so hard. Did you and Daddy ever really love each other? Because it doesn't seem like people who love each other would do this to their family. Juanita sat on her daughter's bed and tried to explain something she barely understood herself. Your father and I loved each other very much. We still love each other. But sometimes love isn't enough to fix all the problems between two people. What problems were so big that you couldn't fix them? Grown-up problems, sweetie. Problems that built up over many years. Will you and Daddy ever get back together? Juanita's heart broke a little more. I don't think so, Jasmine. But we'll always be your parents. That will never change. The media attention was relentless. Every magazine had a cover story about the divorce. Every sports show had experts analyzing what went wrong. Every tabloid had anonymous sources claiming to know the real story. Most of the coverage focused on the money, but some reporters dug deeper into the marriage itself. Sources close to the family say Michael Jordan's obsession with business success drove his wife away, one article claimed. Friends of Juanita Jordan say she felt like a single mother for most of their marriage, another reported. Michael tried to stay above the gossip, but sometimes he couldn't help himself. These reporters don't know anything about my marriage, he told ESPN during an interview. They don't know what I sacrificed for my family. They don't know the whole story. What don't they know, Michael? The interviewer asked. Michael paused. For a moment, he considered telling everything. Abueller and the FBI and his father's murder. About how every secret had been meant to protect the people he loved. But even now, even after losing everything, he couldn't break the habits of secrecy that had destroyed his marriage. They don't know that sometimes protecting your family means making choices that look selfish from the outside, he said finally. It wasn't the whole truth, but it was as close as Michael could get. Juanita watched that interview from her new life in the Highland Park house. The same house where they had raised their children together. The same house where Michael had gotten the phone call about his father's death. The same house where they had tried and failed to rebuild their marriage after his retirement. Now she lived there alone, surrounded by memories of better times. She had started doing more charity work, focusing on organizations that helped families in crisis. It gave her purpose and helped her feel like some good could come from all the pain. Mrs. Jordan, why do you think your marriage ended? A reporter asked her during a charity event. My marriage ended because two people who loved each other very much couldn't figure out how to trust each other completely, she answered. Sometimes that's enough to destroy even the strongest relationships. Do you regret the divorce? Juanita thought about that question for a long time before answering. I regret that we couldn't find a way to make it work. I regret that our children had to go through this. But I don't regret finally choosing my own happiness over trying to save someone who didn't want to be saved. Meanwhile, Michael threw himself back into business with even more intensity than before. He was working on buying the Charlotte Bobcats. He was expanding his Jordan brand. He was making more money than ever. But success felt different now. Empty. What was the point of building an empire if you had no family to share it with? Michael, you seem different, his business partner Estee Portnoy told him during a meeting. Distracted. Are you okay? But the truth was that Michael was lost. For 20 years, his identity had been wrapped up in being Juanita's husband and the children's father. Now he was just Michael Jordan. The brand. The business. The legend. He didn't know how to be just Michael anymore. 6 months after the divorce, Michael ran into Juanita at Marcus's basketball game. It was the first time they had been in the same room since the court proceedings. They sat on opposite sides of the gym, but Michael couldn't help stealing glances at his ex-wife. She looked good. Happier than she had looked in years. After the game, they found themselves walking to their cars at the same time. How are you doing? Michael asked. I'm okay, Juanita replied. How about you? I'm okay too. They stood there for a moment, two people who had once shared everything now struggling to make small talk. The kids are having a hard time, Juanita said. I know, especially Jasmine. She misses having a family. The real kind. Not the kind where parents live in different houses. Michael nodded. Maybe we should have tried harder. Juanita looked at him with sad eyes. Michael, we tried for 20 years. Sometimes trying harder isn't enough. Sometimes you have to try different. What does that mean? It means being willing to be vulnerable. Being willing to trust completely. Being willing to let someone see all of you, even the parts you're ashamed of. Michael understood what she was saying, but even now, even after losing everything, he couldn't imagine opening himself up that completely to another person. I don't know how to do that, he admitted. I know, Juanita said gently. That's why we're divorced. They said goodbye and went to their separate cars. As Michael drove home to his empty penthouse, he realized that Juanita was right about everything. The $168 million divorce settlement made headlines around the world. But for Michael Jordan, the real cost was much higher than money. He had lost his family. He had lost his identity as a husband and father. He had lost the only woman who had ever truly known him. And he was beginning to realize that no amount of business success would ever fill that hole in his life. 2 years after the divorce, Michael Jordan was richer than he had ever been. His Jordan brand was making over $1 billion a year. He had bought the Charlotte Bobcats and become the first former player to own an NBA team. Magazine covers called him a business genius, but success felt hollow when you had no one to share it with. Michael lived alone in his Chicago penthouse, surrounded by trophies and awards that reminded him of everything he had won and lost. Some nights he would walk through the empty rooms and remember when those same spaces had been filled with children's laughter. You need to start dating, his friend Charles Barkley told him during a golf game in 2009. You can't live like a monk forever. I'm not ready, Michael replied. It's been 3 years, man. Juanita has moved on. You should too. But Michael wasn't sure he knew how to move on. He had been with Juanita for over 20 years. She was the only woman who had known him before he became a global icon. The only woman who had loved Michael Jordan the person, not Michael Jordan the brand. How do you replace something like that? Meanwhile, Juanita was rebuilding her life in ways that surprised everyone, including herself. She had used part of her divorce settlement to start a foundation that helped families going through difficult times. The Juanita Jordan Family Foundation provided counseling, financial assistance, and support to parents and children dealing with divorce, death, and other family crises. "I learned a lot about pain during my marriage," she told a reporter at a charity event. "Now I want to help other families avoid the mistakes we made." "Do you ever regret divorcing Michael?" the reporter asked. Juanita thought about the question carefully. "I regret that we couldn't find a way to make our marriage work. But I don't regret choosing my own happiness. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from something that's hurting you, even when you still love it." The children were each dealing with the divorce in their own ways. Jeffrey had graduated from college and was trying to build his own life away from his father's shadow. He worked for a sports marketing company and rarely spoke to the media about his famous parents. "People always want to know about my dad," he told his girlfriend Emma one night. "But I'm not my dad. I'm not even sure I want to be anything like my dad." "You don't mean that," Emma said. "Don't I? Look what his success cost him. Look what it cost all of us." Jeffrey had inherited his father's competitive spirit, but he had also inherited his mother's wisdom about what really mattered in life. He was determined not to make the same mistakes. Marcus was now 20 and playing basketball at the University of Central Florida. But living up to the Jordan name was harder than anyone expected. "Why aren't you as good as your dad?" reporters would ask him after games. "Because there's only one Michael Jordan," Marcus would answer. And thank God for that. Marcus loved basketball, but he hated being compared to his father every single day. He was a good player, but he wasn't great. And in the Jordan family, being good had never been enough. "I think I want to quit basketball," Marcus told his mother during a phone call. "Why, honey?" "Because I'll never be him, and I'm tired of people expecting me to be." "You don't have to be your father," Juanita said. "You just have to be Marcus. And Marcus is pretty wonderful just the way he is." But Marcus wasn't sure he believed that. Growing up as Michael Jordan's son had taught him that winning was everything. Coming in second place felt like failure. Jasmine was now 17 and dealing with her own struggles. She was smart and beautiful and talented, but she was also angry. Angry at her parents for getting divorced. Angry at the media for making her family's private pain into public entertainment. Angry at having to choose between her mother and father for holidays and birthdays. "I hate having divorced parents," she told her best friend Sarah at school. "Everything is complicated. Everything has to be planned around who's mad at who and which parent gets which weekend." "At least your parents still love each other," Sarah said. "My parents can't be in the same room without screaming." "Sometimes I think that would be easier," Jasmine replied. "At least then I wouldn't keep hoping they'll get back together." The truth was that Michael and Juanita did still love each other. They were always polite when they had to interact for the children's sake. They never spoke badly about each other in public. They even worked together on some charity events. But they were like two people speaking different languages. They could communicate about practical things, but they couldn't connect emotionally anymore. In 2010, Michael started dating model Yvette Prieto. She was beautiful, successful, and 15 years younger than him. The media called her his rebound romance. "Are you trying to replace Mom?" Jasmine asked him when he introduced Yvette to the family. "But do you love her?" Michael paused. "I care about her very much." "That's not the same thing." Jasmine was right. Michael cared about Yvette, but he didn't love her the way he had loved Juanita. How could he? He had built even higher walls around his heart after the divorce. He wasn't about to let anyone get close enough to hurt him again. Yvette was safe. She didn't ask too many questions about his past. She didn't push him to be vulnerable. She didn't expect him to share his deepest secrets. Their relationship was comfortable and easy, and completely surface level, which was exactly what Michael thought he wanted. In 2011, Michael proposed to Yvette. The engagement made headlines around the world. Everyone wanted to know if this meant he was finally over Juanita. "I wish your father happiness," Juanita told the children when they asked her about the engagement. "He deserves to find love again." But privately, Juanita worried that Michael was making the same mistake he had made in their marriage. He was choosing someone safe instead of someone who would challenge him to be better. The wedding took place in 2013 at a luxury resort in Florida. It cost several $1,000,000 and was attended by celebrities and athletes from around the world. Jeffrey, Marcus, and Jasmine all attended, but they felt like strangers at their father's second chance at happiness. "Does this feel weird to you?" Marcus whispered to Jeffrey during the ceremony. "Everything about Dad feels weird to me now," Jeffrey whispered back. Michael looked happy at his wedding. But it was a different kind of happiness than he had shown with Juanita. This was performance happiness, camera-ready happiness. The kind of happiness that looked good in magazines but didn't necessarily feel good in real life. In 2014, Michael and Yvette had twin daughters, Victoria and Isabel. Michael was 51 years old and starting over as a father. "How does it feel to have babies again?" A reporter asked him. "It feels like a second chance," Michael said. "A chance to do things differently this time." But the people who knew Michael best weren't sure he had learned the lessons he needed to learn from his first marriage. "He's still the same person," Jeffrey told his mother after visiting his new half-sisters. "Same workaholic, same need to control everything. Same inability to just relax and be present. People don't change unless they really want to," Juanita replied. "And your father has never seen his work habits as a problem. He sees them as a strength. Do you think he's happy with Yvette?" Juanita considered the question. "I think he's as happy as he's capable of being, but I don't think he's learned how to be truly vulnerable with another person. And without that, you can't have the kind of love that lasts." By 2015, Juanita had started dating a businessman named David Thompson. He was divorced with children of his own, and he understood the challenges of blending families and building relationships later in life. "He's nothing like your father," she told Jasmine. "He doesn't need to win at everything. He doesn't need to be the center of attention. He just wants to be a good partner." "Are you gonna marry him?" Jasmine asked. "Maybe someday. But I'm not in a hurry. I spent 20 years in a marriage where I was always waiting for things to get better. Now I'm just enjoying being with someone who makes me happy right now." The contrast between Juanita's new relationship and Michael's was striking. Juanita had learned to value emotional connection over status or success. Michael had learned to avoid emotional connection to prevent getting hurt again. In 2018, Agent Sarah Morrison, the FBI investigator who had worked with Michael during the Buhler case, reached out to him. "Mr. Jordan," she said during a phone call, "I've been following your life in the news. I hope you know that what happened to your marriage wasn't your fault. You were in an impossible situation." "It feels like my fault," Michael replied. "If I had been stronger, if I had trusted Juanita with the truth earlier, maybe things would have been different. It took my family away from me." "Mr. Jordan, have you ever considered telling your story publicly? The real story about what you went through. It might help people understand why your marriage ended." Michael was quiet for a long time. "I signed papers saying I would never discuss the investigation. Those papers have expired. The case is closed. The people involved are either dead or in prison. You're free to tell your story if you want to." After he hung up the phone, Michael sat in his office and thought about Agent Morrison's words. For over 20 years, he had carried the burden of those secrets alone. Maybe it was time to finally tell the truth. Maybe it was time to let the world know that Michael Jordan was human after all. Maybe it was time to let the world know that Michael Jordan was human after all. And that brought us back to March 15, 2019. Back to the studio at Sports Central Live in Chicago. Back to Marcus Thompson asking the question that Michael had been avoiding for 13 years. After Michael walked out of the studio, Marcus sat in stunned silence. The cameras were still rolling. Millions of viewers were watching. Nobody knew what to do next. "We're gonna take a commercial break," Marcus finally said to the camera. "When we come back, we'll try to make sense of what just happened." But during the commercial break, something unexpected occurred. Michael Jordan came back. He walked back into the studio, sat down in his chair, and looked directly at Marcus. "Turn the cameras back on," Michael said. "I'm ready to tell the truth." Marcus signaled to the control room. Within seconds, they were live again. "Michael, you're back," Marcus said, clearly surprised. "I walked out because I was scared," Michael began. "I've been scared for 25 years. Scared of telling the truth about what really happened to my family." The studio was completely quiet. Even the camera operators had stopped moving. "You asked me about my divorce, about the rumors, about why my marriage really ended. Michael looked directly into the camera. The truth is more complicated than anyone ever imagined. Michael took a deep breath and began to tell the story he had kept secret for over 2 decades. He told them about James Buhler and the gambling debt that grew to $3 million. He told them about his father's murder and how it wasn't a random robbery. He told them about the FBI investigation and the 18 months he spent as an undercover informant. I retired from basketball the first time not because I lost my love for the game, Michael said, his voice shaking with emotion. I retired because staying in the league was putting my family in danger. Marcus Thompson, one of the toughest interviewers in sports journalism, sat with his mouth open. The FBI made me promise never to discuss the investigation. Michael continued, even with my wife, even with my children. For their own safety, they said. But those secrets destroyed my marriage. Michael's eyes filled with tears as he looked into the camera. I spent 13 years lying to the woman I loved because I thought I was protecting her. But you can't build a marriage on lies, even when the lies are meant to keep someone safe. He wiped his eyes and continued. Juanita divorced me because I had become a stranger to her. Because I had learned to keep secrets so well that I forgot how to share my life with the person I loved most. Marcus finally found his voice. Michael, this is incredible. Why are you telling us this now? Because I'm tired of carrying this alone, Michael said. Because my children deserve to know why their family fell apart. Because Juanita deserves for people to understand that she wasn't a gold digger. She was a woman who loved her husband but couldn't live with his secrets anymore. Michael looked directly into the camera again. My divorce cost $68 million. But that money was nothing compared to what I really lost. I lost my family. I lost the trust of the people I loved most. I lost myself for a while. He paused and took another deep breath. I want people to know that Juanita Jordan is a good woman who tried to save our marriage for 20 years. She filed for divorce because I had become someone she didn't recognize. Someone who couldn't trust her with the truth about his own life. Marcus leaned forward. Do you regret keeping those secrets? Every day, Michael said without hesitation. I thought I was protecting my family, but I was actually destroying it. I thought being strong meant handling everything alone. But real strength would have been trusting my wife to handle the truth with me. Have you talked to Juanita about this? Does she know you're revealing this today? Michael shook his head. She doesn't know. But I hope she understands that I'm not trying to make excuses. I'm trying to take responsibility for the choices I made. What do you want people to take away from this? Michael was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. I want people to know that success doesn't protect you from making terrible mistakes. I want them to know that loving someone means trusting them with your complete truth, even when that truth is scary or dangerous or embarrassing. He looked down at his hands, then back up at the camera. I want my children to know that their father is human, that I made mistakes that hurt the people I loved most, and that I'm sorry. The interview ended there. Michael stood up, shook Marcus's hand, and walked out of the studio. Within hours, the interview had been viewed by over 50 million people. It became the most watched sports interview in television history. But for Michael Jordan, it wasn't about ratings or headlines. It was about finally telling the truth he should have told 20 years earlier. 3 days later, Michael received a text message from Jeffrey. Dad, I finally understand. I love you. 2 hours after that, Marcus called him. I'm proud of you for telling the truth, Dad. That took real courage. That evening, Jasmine showed up at his door with tears in her eyes. I always knew you were hiding something. Thank you for finally trusting us with it. And the next morning, Michael got a handwritten letter delivered to his office. It was from Juanita. Michael, it read, thank you for telling our story with respect and honesty. Our marriage couldn't survive your secrets, but I hope your truth can help other families avoid our mistakes. You were always a good man who made impossible choices. I've never stopped loving you, even when I couldn't live with you. I'm proud of the courage it took to finally speak your truth. Love always, Juanita. Michael sat in his office and cried. Not from sadness this time, but from relief. After 25 years of carrying secrets alone, he was finally free. The truth hadn't saved his marriage, but it had saved his relationship with his children. And maybe, just maybe, it would help other families choose honesty over protection, trust over control, and love over fear. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is admit you were wrong. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is show your weakness. And sometimes, telling the truth 20 years too late is still better than never telling it at all. We'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment and tell us which city or country you're tuning in from. It's amazing to connect with listeners from all around the world. If this story moved you, please hit that like button. It really helps us know what content resonates with you. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more incredible true stories like this one. We're always uncovering the hidden truths behind the headlines. Most importantly, please share this video with your friends and family. Stories like Michael and Juanita's remind us that even the most successful people face real struggles. By sharing these stories, we spread awareness about the importance of honesty, vulnerability, and choosing connection over perfection in our relationships. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is simply understand that everyone, even our heroes, is beautifully imperfectly human. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next story.